Namaste. My name is Todd and I'm the founder of Ashaya Yoga. Welcome to Asana Spotlight. Hey, share this experience with anyone that you think is in need of a little bit of light and love and wisdom, and also if they have tight hips, because we're going to do an awesome posture today that opens up the hips and the hamstrings, which is great for springtime if you're out and about exercising, biking, running, walking, hiking, swimming, as that's what I'm doing. And I'm telling you, my hips have tightened up. So I'm really looking forward to doing this asana spotlight. So let's get started. The pose I'm going to teach today is called Upavistha Konasana. Upavistha Konasana. Upavistha means seated, and kona is angle, and asana is pose. So seated angle pose. And it's a great posture. It's really focused on the hips. And I like to think of, how do we really open the hips? And it's, the hips are related to the second chakra, which is really the center of creation and center of flow. And we want to learn how to actually flow in life more like water. And the element related to the second chakra is water. So when you're opening your hips, you got to deal with this water element. And how do you optimize a water element? You need to give it strong river banks. So the rivers that have the steep banks that are really set and strong can make the water more swift. It can increase more flow, and the water is directed. Another sort of teaching about water is that water always returns to source. So you think of this rhythm and flow of water in the body. It's the breath, and that when you really tune into your breath, it brings you more calm. It brings you into your heart. And you think of all water everywhere, has its propensity towards the ocean, which we can consider is the source. Water is the source of life itself. And in fact, we floated for 9 months before being born. So, and the deal is that when you don't have enough of the water element in your life, life gets stagnant, it gets dull, it gets boring. We need adventure, we need this kind of creativity, and we need change. Oh my God, no, please, no change. But one of the affirmations I like to use with the second chakra is, I easily flow with change. Because let's face it, change is the only thing that never changes. So how do we react to change? How do we respond to it? Well, certainly we want to be able to flow. In the Tantra, the waves, the life wave on the surface of the ocean really represents our individual nature. We're not trying to get rid of our individuality. In fact, we want to enhance it more, support it. So it's not about getting off the waves. That the life, according to the Tantric philosophy, is learning how to surf the waves. And actually understand that on the surface are these waves, but we have this capacity to extend an anchor all the way down to the deep bottom of the ocean, this source of oceanic consciousness that's steady and consistent and peaceful and calm and absolutely balanced. And we could say that, the waves on the surface are made of the ocean, but we forget. We walk around like oceanless waves, waves without source. Our individual nature, when we forget about that we're connected to the universal of all things, that we're actually connected to nature, we're part of it. And part of the secret to happiness is to understand and how to cultivate this source oceanic consciousness. So part of it is, instead of avoiding challenges in life, how do you address those challenges? How do you surf the waves such that you get really skillful at going up and going down? And that has been a real focus of mine lately, because change is happening so quickly now. And so I think the best we can do is learn how to flow with life. And how do you flow with life? How does water flow? You need to create a boundary. So clear limits, no boundaries. Meaning that when you create clear boundaries, actually it's clear boundaries, no limits. When you have healthy self-boundaries, your life flows. Case in point, I tend to be a night owl. I'm easily up until midnight every night, sometimes one. And it's like my creative time. I've always been that way. I've been a jazz musician in the earlier part of my life. And of course, that's all the gigs were late at night. So I've carried that through. But last night I decided, no, I'm going to set a boundary here. And I just, as soon as I got tired, which was around 10:30, I just stopped and did my little yoga practice before bed and slept well. And I'm telling you, I woke up refreshed and like ready for the day. So just in our lives, how can we set healthy self-boundaries to sustain and nurture and maintain a sense of freedom? So there's really no freedom without boundary. And when you go back to the essence of the source of all consciousness, it's the one unbounded free self that chose out of its own delight to create the boundary, which is you. And then we show up and we're beings that are both freedom and boundary together. So it's quite the paradox that we're limited in this physical body, yet we're connected to the unlimited source of all that is. And, happiness is when you have that balance between your sort of limited nature and your unlimited nature. You find the place in the middle. And when that happens, something wakes up in your brain and you recognize that your true nature is joy. And it's this boundless, infinite, boundaryless experience of all possibilities. And that is the highest purpose of the practice of yoga. We want to touch that place and tap into that. So, are you inspired now? All right, so let's get started. You're going to join me. Let's come up to a standing position. And as always, we're going to do a few warm-ups to get us ready for Upavistha Konasana. And, the goal of this is how to get into this pose easily and to show some modifications so everybody can do the pose, even if your hamstrings are granite tight. So here we go. Come stand. Stand with your feet hip distance apart at the front of your mat. Inhale, stretch up, and then hug in. Lift your toes. Create the boundary. You draw in with self-honor, to honor yourself. You are the infinite expression of the universe in limited form. So breathe in, hug arms toward the middle, hug legs toward the middle, hug your muscles onto your bones, and create the boundary that is you. And then from the core of your pelvis, even as you hug in, just radiate out in all directions. Push from your pelvis down through your feet into the earth, and from your pelvis rise up. And stretch through your heart, your arms, neck and head, and all the way up and out through your fingertips. And breathe. Tune into the flow of your breath. It's like that's the water element. It comes in the form of this rhythmic pulsation. Think of the tides of the ocean, the waves, and let your breath be like a wave. Inhale the universe into you, so the infinite comes into the finite, and then exhale off of your limited nature out into the infinite universe. And then exhale. Sweep your arms down, lead with your heart, fold forward, hands in eagle talons or hands on blocks if you need. Put your hands on your upper outer shins, lift your toes, and the fifth toe especially, that's the earth toe of all the five elements. And when you lift your fifth toe, the shins start to engage. You're going to enhance that. Press your upper shins in toward the middle, and you set the boundary. Keeping the boundary then, widen your hips and thighs apart. So against the boundary, push your thigh bones wide. Push your sitting bones wide. Don't let your knees cave in. So actually the knees go with your thighs. So push the knees and thighs apart, such that the center of your kneecap is in line with toe 2 and 3. So even as you hug shins in, clear boundary and then no limits. Push your sitting bones wide.
Maintain those actions. Inhale, heart forward. Exhale, step back. Downward facing dog pose. And then alternately press one heel down and bend the opposite knee. So we've got to get the backs of the legs to open for a seated angle pose. And this is a great warm-up to make that happen. Awesome. Now, bend both knees. Turn your thighs in. When you bend your knees here, move your knees a little wider apart, but don't let your heels cave in. So you have to keep your heels steady. Hug your shins. Don't move your heels, but turn your knees out a little bit. Turn your thighs in. Lift your sitting bones way up and try to generate a low back curve. Very good. Exhale, right leg forward lunge and come up, hands to hips. Very good. Pull your legs in toward the middle. Rivers need strong river banks so that they can increase the flow. And when you have healthy self-boundaries, you'll increase your flow. Inhale, stretch your arms up. Lift your left thigh a little bit higher. Right hip goes down toward the earth. And then from your pelvis, push out through your feet and rise up from pelvis and even arch back a little bit. Enjoy the stretch. Exhale, sweep your arms out to the side. Come all the way down, step back, downward facing dog pose, and breathe. Breathe the ocean of consciousness in. We want more freedom. How do you get more freedom? You have to hug in. Claw your finger pads and roots. See, if you don't bind yourself to what your heart most deeply desires, something else is going to bind itself to you, and it's probably not what you want. Exhale, left leg forward, come up, hands to hips. Hug in, just draw into the balance here. Set healthy self-boundaries. And then inhale, stretch up. Lift your right thigh a little higher. Left hip toward the floor more. And from your pelvis, just push out through your feet. From your pelvis, rise. Now, the more you root, the more you rise. The stronger the boundary, the more freedom you can have. Armpits back. Let your heart fly upward toward the sky. And breathe. Surf the waves here. Surf the wave of your breath. Let the breath flow in and flow out. But sink your roots deep into the earth. From your pelvis, stay connected, rooted to the source, yet open to all possibilities. And then exhale. Sweep your arms down. Step back, plank. Come down, chaturanga. Hold for a moment. You can bring your knees on the floor if you wish. Head of the arm bones back. Now thighs back, water element. Pull your tailbone in. That's the fire element. And from your low belly, push through your heels and through your head. That's the air element. And then exhale down. If you feel like you're going to die, that's the sky element. Inhale, come up. Just do a little cobra pose. Shoulders go back, heart forward. Squeeze your legs. Enjoy the stretch. And then downward facing dog pose. Walk in. Root your feet. Sweep your arms out to the side. Inhale up. And then exhale. Palms in front. One more little warm up. Take a wide stance. So this pose, it's going to actually look like Upavistha Konasana, but in a standing position. So make your feet parallel. Stretch your arms out. You can have your ankles just a little shorter wide than the wrists are wide, but do keep your feet parallel. And then hug your legs and try to squeeze your ankles in toward the middle. Lift your fifth toes. That will engage your shins. That's the riverbank. Keeping your shins strong, take your thighs back. That's freedom. Tailbone in.
And then exhale, fold halfway down. And then come on down, and you could grab a block, put your hands on a block if you can't touch the floor. If you're on the floor, just go with eagle talons, bend your elbows. Now, before you fold forward, I want you to try to create a low back curve. I'll give you the side view here. So here's a rounded back, and here's the curve. Boom, just like that. So turn your thighs in, stick your butt back. Try to keep the curve. Now, lower your heart toward the floor, but maintain the curve in your low back for as long as you can. And eventually you pull your tailbone in, pull your navel in, and then round. So you get a little bit of flexion of the spine, but it's flexion with extension. Very good. And if you can reach, you can bring your hands to your ankles or to the outer edges of your feet like this. Inhale, come up halfway, and then walk your hands around to the right and hold the right ankle with both hands and bow again. This time when you bow, try to keep the right side of your torso long. So it's a little bit of a turn. This is Parsva Prasarita Padottanasana. As a little warm up, armpits back, melt, forehead toward the shin. Breathe. Now, inner rotate your left thigh. So you hug your shins, that's the boundary, and then widen your left thigh out to the left. And that helps to balance the sacrum. Inhale, come back to center. Take it over to the left. Hold the ankle with both hands. Bow. Lengthen your left side now. So the side of your torso on the side of the leg that you're stretching toward usually contracts. So we want to expand left side, left armpit back. And then hug your shins toward the middle. Set the boundary. Widen your right hip a little bit more toward the right. And bow. Big stretch in the hamstrings, but this is one of the best warm-ups for Upavistha Konasana because it really works the legs. Inhale, come back to center, root your feet down, sweep your arms out to the side, come all the way up, and exhale. Release your arms, step your feet back to center, and just walk in place, feel your legs. They should feel pretty good now. All right, so come and take a seat. To maintain a low back curve, I'm going to ask you to sit up on one or two folded blankets and take a wide angle pose with your legs. And we want the legs to be like, how wide is wide? Well, it looks wider in the video, but my legs are at a little bit wider than 90 degrees. So you can go from about 90 to 120 degrees. Once you go wider than 120, that's the side splits. It's Samakonasana. It's named a different posture. Similar, it's related. It's the cousin of Upavistha Konasana, Samakonasana. But it's a little more, you have to be a little more stretchy for that. So we're not going to do that today. And our goal here is to sit with a low back curve. And we'll be using a belt in a second. So I want to show you from the side that so generally when we sit on the floor, it's this. And you can see my whole back is rounded here. And that is not good for the discs. So we elevate the hips so we can sit up. Okay, watch. I'm going to pull the low back in and then hug your shins toward the middle and then widen your thighs. So take one of your legs, both hands on the thigh, and try to move the bone. Not the muscles, but the bones. And you widen the sitting bone out, both sides. And what that does is it helps to pull the vertebrae in. The top of the sacrum tips in
And now you've got a low back curve, which is the natural shape of the lumbar spine. And then we're going to lengthen it. So pull your tailbone in a little. Okay. So how do we keep that low back curve? Well, we want to start to fold forward, but instead of doing a forward bend, think of this, the first sort of 1/3 of the pose is a back bend. So I'll say, do a back bend in the forward bend. Bring your hands down in front and stick your butt way back, hug your shins, okay? And also you want to check your feet, because if your hamstrings are tight, generally your leg is going to be externally rotated and your feet are going to turn out. So why we turn the thigh bones in is because the hamstrings have an external weave. So we are shifting the external weave to be internal, and that's going to balance the hips and also balance the legs. But you have to watch your feet. The feet should be Tadasana. So if your feet have turned out, you're not inner-rotating your thighs enough. So let me give you another view here. So manually turn your thighs in. Okay, here we go. Now bring your hands behind your back on eagle talons. If you're sitting up on blankets, you probably have to put your hands on the blanket as well. Now, spread your toes. Spread your fifth toe, that's the earth toe. And look at the front center ankle and the second metatarsal. Those should be perpendicular to the floor. So the second toe and front ankle, just like Tadasana. So for many of you, you're going to have to turn your thighs in even more. Okay, and just try to glue your foot into that shape. And then another thing that's not widely known is that there's a magic point, a magic button in this pose. So here's how you find it. Squeeze your ankles toward the middle, spread your fifth toes, both feet are in Tadasana, and then hug muscles to bones. Here comes the magic button. Press the upper inner knee point down. Okay, locate it, upper inner knee. It's this point here. It's the bottom end of the vastus medialis muscle, which is a very difficult muscle to engage, but you can. So engage that, and we can teach ourselves how to engage it. So you can tap it and see if you can get the muscle to contract. You'll see the line here. When I contract mine, you can see it. Okay, when that point goes down, the whole bottom of your leg stays on the floor, and that's what we want. So try to keep the whole underbelly of your leg down, the hamstring, back of the knee, the calf, and the heel. And when I say back of the knee, if you just push the back of the knee down, your heels could lift up. And if your heels lift up, that means you're hyperextending your knee. So push your heels down, push the knee down, calf and thigh down. Okay? Check your feet. They're going to roll out like they have a mind of their own. Okay, so here we go. So the first one we're going to do is just the regular Upavistha Konasana. So keep your low back curve. Exhale, do a back bend in the forward bend. Now bring your hands out in front, bend your elbows, pull your shoulders back. Continue to fold forward, and then pause. And as soon as you start to feel your back start to round, draw your tailbone in, pull your navel back, and then continue to fold with an even rate of change between each of the vertebrae. So basically, your spine should be smoothly elongated. From your pelvis, root your hips deep into the earth, and from your pelvis, lengthen your side ribs. Take your shoulders back. So continue to elongate your spine as you fold forward. Very good. For those that are more flexible, you can just keep going. Put your hands on your toes, and then you can go and you can bring your chest all the way down to the floor. Inhale, come up,
And we're going to do a little variation, but I'd like you to grab yourself a belt, put it around the right foot. So you're going to hold the right foot like this, and then as you exhale, twist towards your right and fold. Very complex action, but you turn and fold. And the belt helps you keep a low back curve. And then you just hold it there. If you have more flexibility, you can lose the belt and hold the outer edge of the right shin with your left hand. Remember that when we did Parsva Prasarita Padottanasana in the warm-up, this is the same thing. You can visualize yourself standing on your feet. Bring your right hand forward so it's parallel with the lower part of your shin, and lift your right armpit way up, lengthen the whole right side of your torso. That tends to collapse because it's on the same side as the right leg. Melt the central line of your spine, but lift the peripheral parts up. So the waistlines go up. This is all part of the boundary. Waistlines back, armpits back, ears back. And then extend your heart forward towards your foot. Not done yet. As you go forward, inner rotate your left thigh and hip. Widen your left thigh away, and you're going to feel an awesome stretch. And as you go into this, it's called Parsva Upavistha Konasana, don't let your left hip come off the floor. So root the hips down, pull your tailbone in. Okay, stretch your heart more. And breathe. Healthy boundaries, no limits. Continue to hug in, honor yourself, and also honor your limits. Pay attention to them. Don't force them, but also don't shy away from them. Inhale, root your hips down and come up. Let's take a little pause before the second side. So hold underneath your knees, bend your knees, and just sit in a comfortable Sukhasana pose for a moment. And that's going to totally recover your thighs. Okay, second side for Parsva Upavistha. Stretch your legs out. Manually turn your thigh bones in. Hands behind your back. Get a low back curve. Make sure you're up on blankets if you need them. And then exhale, turn to the left. Bring your belt around the left foot. Pull on the belt, shoulders back, low back curve. Check your feet. They should not be turned in too much or turned out. Straight up and down. And then go into the back bend as you go into the forward bend. Do a back bend in the forward bend. Awesome. Keep the low back curve. And you'll notice, like as you start going more to the left, your right hip comes up. So keep your right hip down. You can hold across the left shin or the little toe edge of your left toe, or just keep holding the belt. Left hand comes parallel to the middle of the shin. So a lot of people do this and they keep their, the left hand way back. And so what happens is one shoulder is back, one shoulder is forward. I want you to keep your shoulders lifted, armpits back, heart forward. Then squeeze, create the boundary, hug in. The universe had to bind itself to become you. Then widen your thighs. Take your right hip back, and right hip turns in and moves back away from the pelvis. Keep your right hip down. Both sitting bones stay down on the floor. And then root the pelvis down, tailbone in, and lift your heart and extend. Try to lengthen through your left side, left armpit. Then the central line of your spine descends toward the earth while the peripheral parts lift up. So outer hip creases go back. Waistline, sides of the waist go up toward the sky. Armpits go up toward the sky. Sides of the throat go back.
but the central line of the spine descends. Breathe. All the forward bend poses like this one, they help to create connection to source. So take a deeper dive inside and just flow with the natural tides of your breath. Let your body be bound by the form, and then let the formless flow within the form of the body. The postures are just, they're like shells, and there's real energy within them, and how you hold the pose and how you breathe and how much you can let go and engage determines the benefit of the pose. Root through your hips and inhale. Slowly come up. Hold under your knees and bend. Bring the soles of your feet to touch. Just a very brief Upavistha Konasana pose. Push from your feet out through your knees. Pull your low back in. And then sit comfortably. You can elevate your hips. And we take a moment just to dwell in the depths of the experience. So close your eyes. Join your index fingers and thumbs. This is a mudra that really teaches how the index finger, which represents our ego, our individual limited self, joins with the thumb, which is the sky. Imagine the wave joins with the ocean. It remembers. Take your shoulders back, head back, eyes closed. And then extend a root or an anchor deep down into the ocean of consciousness and try to tap in to that infinite source within that's calm, that's still. Let the breath be the waves and the flow that keeps you conscious. And find the place where the wave meets the ocean, deep in the heart, where your bound, limited self meets the universal, unlimited, unbounded part of you. And let your breath be a circle that you inhale the ocean of freedom into your heart, and you exhale all limitations. And then bring your palms together in front of your heart. We use the water element to return to source, the source of all life. We return to the womb of the self, where creativity is born, where consciousness flows. In this place, all the desires of the heart, the dreams of the heart, become reality. So reflect on, what does your heart most deeply desire? What's of value to you? And what are you prepared to do about it? And then let's join our hearts together with the infinite oceanic source of consciousness through the sound of Om. Take a breath. The ocean in me bows to the ocean in you. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me for Asana Spotlight. Stay open, engaged, and aligned with your heart. See you next time.
Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.